Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners! The Sounders rule the region! Seattle Sounders is campeón! All creatures great and small.
Rothrock going to collect it. He does just about. Runs into the advertising awning. Low to our left. Ball goes in. Oh, what a cross! And what a goal!
Where's my copy?
I got a bunch of them in the car. I'll get you some.
You're handing them out for free already.
How many
cost on them?
$50.
I'll Venmo you.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes on the Sounder at Heart podcast network. I am Jeremiah Shan. It is Friday. I am joined by my good buddy, Niko Moreno, for another episode of What We Learned This Week. Niko, coming off a pretty fun game. We missed you, though, there.
I know. I wish I would have been able to go. Hello, everyone. Excited to be on. The Sounders beat the Whitecaps so bad that it started snowing in Seattle. That's how bad that beatdown was. 3-0 scoreline. So excited to be on with you guys. If you're out there in the snow, drive safely. The roads are looking tough. But, man, yes, big win for the Sounders. So I am probably pretty intrigued on your thoughts, and then what did this mean moving forward? So, man, let's get to it.
Yeah, so the Sounders won the first leg of their round of 16 Concacaf Champions Cup tie or series, however you want to call it, 3-0. So that's a pretty big deal. They got not just a 3-0 lead, but they have three road goals, which are the first tiebreaker. So theoretically, they could lose. They could go back to Spokane, lose 2-0, and still advance. They could lose 3-1 and still advance. There's a lot of. They have a lot of room. Is my point. And what's even also really good about this is that FC Cincinnati won their home leg against Tigres 3-0. So as long as they do better than Cincinnati does on the road, they are in advance. There's a pretty good, I guess my point here is there's a pretty good chance they will host the second leg of the quarterfinals if they get there, of course. Because if Tigres win, they would have to just absolutely destroy. They'd have to win by a lot in order to sort of overcome this deficit that they currently have. And if Cincinnati, this is going to be in Mexico. So it's just from a purely practical standpoint, I guess is the point I'm making. It's an important win. It's a big deal to get 3 road goals and to be up 3-0.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, right? And obviously for Cincinnati going to play in El Volcán is not going to be easy. And the Sounders just in this particular game on the road, they give themselves a pretty good cushion, right? Because it is at home and it is going to be with mainly, or if not all, of the Sounder support, but it is another venue. And I think that Brian touched on it, right? They've never played at this particular stadium. It could, be different, but having this lead allows him to manage this pretty well. He was not having it about Sunday's lineup. He said, we're going to go to San Jose and win, and that doesn't matter. But I do expect him to make the necessary movements so that he has a more than capable team on the Spokane game. Because on Wednesday, and I'm going to ask Brian about this. I don't know if he's ever been in this sort of position. Definitely not in this tournament, but you have to be ready for a Whitecaps team that's going to come in just pushing everything they have and throwing, everything in the kitchen sink at you. So, how do you manage those first 15 minutes or 20 minutes or how that plays out? But he's got to be ready for a desperate Jasper and Swords in that second leg.
Yeah, I would say the closest comparison that comes to mind to me, they've never won a road. I mean, I guess they beat, even like last year they played Antigua and they won the first leg 3-1. 3-1 though is different. Also, Antigua definitely a different quality of opponent than the Whitecaps. Maybe the closest comparison was back in 2017. I think they beat Houston Dynamo 2-0 in Houston and then came back for the second leg in the playoffs. They won that leg, I think 3-0. So they ended up being kind of a romp that they went through in that one. But there's not a lot of good. That's not a good comparison either, because Houston is not nearly as good of a team as the Whitecaps. I mean, I think what really makes this such an important win and makes it also tough to contextualize is that the Whitecaps legitimately are one of the best clubs in North America right now. They won the Canadian Championship last year. They went to both. They're one of the few teams that have gone to both the Concacaf Champions Cup and the MLS Cup final in the same year. They lost both, but they went to those finals, and then they finished tied for the most points in the Western Conference. And then this year they're currently 3-0 in league play. This is a really, really good team. Yeah, they were missing some players, but they've been missing players. Like really maybe the most notable player that didn't start in this one was Brian White, and he did not. He came in I think he came in at halftime. I didn't even notice that he was on the field. He barely touched the ball.
There were a couple of players missing, and I'm glad you touched that, because I definitely want to give you my overall takes on the game. But before that, we could start there. I don't know about you, but I was surprised that so many players were missing from this team. I don't know if it was Jasper Sorensen. At the time, I did like a small brief Twitter space prior to the game, like a little pre-funk. And I mentioned that I don't know if it was disrespect that you could take from that or you're underestimating, but obviously Andres Cubas is huge for this team at midfield. He went with LaRosse. No AZ Jackson, went with KG Cabrera. That was surprising.
Cubas was suspended, by the way. Cubas was suspended.
Cubas was suspended, so that's good. That's a good note. So no Cubas for that specific reason. So missing there. The Kenji Cabrera one, that one I didn't expect either. But AZ Jackson did come in, and then of course Brian White. That was the biggest one, as you mentioned. That's what I thought was going to be the clear most difficult duel. Whether it was Alex Roldan and Jackson Reagan, just trying to deal with Brian White, a very savvy, very experienced guy that knows how to time certain runs into the box that can be difficult to defend.
Good striker.
Great striker. And obviously these were things that I had not realized that Cubas was missing, but some guys that were not part of the starting lineup. But regardless of, it doesn't take away from the Sounders win. I don't want to in any shape, way, or form diminish that, but I want to know if you were at all surprised with some of those moves.
Oh yeah,
with the exception of Cubas.
Well, I didn't. To be honest with you, I didn't realize Cubas was suspended until I was talking to someone last night, and we talked like, why isn't Cubas starting? And they said, well, he picked up one of the dumbest yellow cards I've ever seen, because apparently they were already up 2-0 on Cartagenas in the first round, and he came on for the last 5 minutes just to sort of see out the win and picked up a yellow card in that 5 minutes. And so he was out for accumulation essentially. And like just a dumb play, but that's not the Sounders problem. I do think it does sort of inform the challenge of the second leg, which is they're going to get a better version of the Whitecaps most likely. And so it's not like they can just go all out against San Jose and with the assumption that they can just sort of sit on a lead in Spokane. I think they have to come ready to close this out in Spokane. But yeah, I was with you. I was surprised. I don't know. I assume I haven't listened to the post game, so maybe Sorensen explained some of those decisions in the post game, but it was still a good team. And this is still a really deep team. And, Vancouver I was sort of struck by how many players they were missing, how many of these players that they didn't start. And they still look like on paper, like a really formidable opponent. Whitecaps are a really, really good team. And, I think, early, one of the questions I asked Brian last night was, I thought that you guys were really good on the counter. What did you make of that? And he sort of like rejected the premise a little bit. And it's like, well, I thought we were really good in all phases of play. And I mean, fair enough, I guess. But I think the reality was, outside of the Sounders were doing a good job of creating chances, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. Even before they got the goal, there was the chance that Arriola had in front in the 14th minute. It could have easily been 2-0 going into halftime. But aside from the chances they were creating, I thought the Whitecaps were really controlling the match and putting the Sounders on their heels, even if they weren't getting great looks on goal, which I would say is different from the St. Louis game, where the Sounders were giving up possession, but St. Louis just wasn't creating dangerous situations. Whereas the Whitecaps, I thought, were very close to creating. They were putting the Sounders under a different kind of pressure, I thought, in the first half.
Yeah, but at the same time, Seattle was a lot more aggressive and a lot more effective on the ball. So it was truly a back and forth game. And I think you feed me perfectly into what I wanted to talk about, because do not feel dismissed because of Brian Schmetzer's response, because you're very spot on, for one. And number two, that's just Brian Schmetzer being he gets very defensive when it comes to, and I don't know if he's expecting us to ask him these questions to make him look bad, but, prior to this game, I asked Freddie Juarez a similar question that I typically ask Brian Schmetzer, and Freddie Juarez gave me this phenomenal, elaborate, illustrative answer. He's like, "Hey, Niko, I don't really agree with you, but this is what I saw. This is what I was trying to get at when he came to that St. Louis game." And I think that's why maybe you feel like Brian maybe dismissed the question, but I just think that's just the way he is.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is.
And I don't know. Sometimes it's almost gaslighting, because, and I'm going somewhere with this. One of the things that I was concerned about when it came to the St. Louis game was the lack of elite players and dangerous players in the attacking end, when you had Snyder Burnell playing as a pocket winger, and Brian gave me crap about, well, he's not a winger. No, he is a winger. On paper, he is a winger. In the concepts, he's not a winger. I understand that. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't do winger play. That pocket winger's got to be ready to get wide when there's an underlapping run. When you're in transition specifically, you got to play wide because you're pressing wide. And I think that Ferreira yesterday was phenomenal at it. That chance that you mentioned is one of the ones that I broke down, because I've seen this game twice already. Jesus Ferreira pokes a ball in the Sounders half. He gets a pass into Burnell. By the time Burnell has the ball, Ferreira's already making that wide run. Burnell finds Albert Rusnak higher up the field. And as Albert Rusnak very well does with his vision, he's already seeing Jesus Ferreira make that run, and is a one-touch pass to play Jesus Ferreira into space. And now he doesn't play him far into space. So Jesus Ferreira, being a very technical and smart player, he takes a huge first touch to get himself more room to get behind that ball. And then he has the sight to try a cross that wasn't very good, because he lacked a little pace, or a lot of pace, but trying to make that pass is what makes Jesus, because he will just test it, he'll try it, and that ball gets to Jesus because I don't know if it's Laporta or somebody really misses that interception on Jesus's pass, and he finally gets to Arriola, and Arriola,
Blackman is the one who goes down and
Blackman. Blackman doesn't quite get there. And Arriola, I think himself is surprised that he gets that ball.
Yes.
And then
because if he hits it with his left first time, it's an easy goal. But I think he was totally surprised by it getting to him the way it did. But go on.
So Takaoka makes the save, and obviously it's because it was a little bit surprising for Paul Arriola. But the whole premises of me focusing so much on Ferreira is not because I just want Ferreira to be on all the time or because I'm obsessed. He's just one of our very few creative players, and he is the perfect guy to play that pocket winger. There isn't anybody else necessarily right now in this roster that can play it the way he does, and you saw it there. He created 4 transition opportunities, one that is in the 30th minute, I believe, another phenomenal transition moment. They get on the run, and unfortunately he ends up giving it to Christian Roldan, who gets dispossessed on that particular transition moment, which also we'll talk about Christian because he did not have a great game in this one, but that's what Ferreira does. And prior to this game, I was so focused on that Arriola Jesus partnership. In Spanish, especially when it comes to the soccer world, we use associaciones, associations on the field, guys that just play to you and you play to them. That's a huge component. That's what you had in Lodero and Raul. And sometimes you play out of just memory. And there is another play. I should have noted this. I'm going to start noting this stuff once down. There's a little play where in the first half where Arriola and Jesus find themselves, and there's a little back heel in between them two, and then Snyder does a great job at picking up space. But all those little associations, they make the difference. And in this one, that was particularly important. So for me, I don't want to get too far into it, but I just wanted to notate how key Jesus is on that pocket winger position and how good Seattle was at being aggressive to not just punch with the Whitecaps in the mouth, which I don't think they expected, but keeping them guarded, continuing to be dangerous, continuing to push the envelope and make them defend. I thought that was huge by the Sounders to be this aggressive against Vancouver at BC Place.
Yeah, and to your point, the goal actually comes out of another really nice Ferreira play where he takes advantage of a poor back pass. That one is Laborda who has the poor back pass, and he just chases it down. Not so dissimilar, frankly, than the goal against St. Louis, where it's different, but it's similar in that he's taking advantage of a defender just not accounting for the way he's playing it. And anyway, he drives to that goal is all Ferreira, frankly, because the way he drives towards goal forces Takaoka to respect the potential shot, pulls him out of position, and then he hits a really nice pass to Arriola, who is at right around the penalty spot, a little farther in. And so here's a fun little stat for you that sort of speaks to your point about the association between Arriola and Ferreira. So they have now played a little less than 6,000 minutes together on the field between club and country, United States and Dallas and the Sounders. They've combined on 16 goals. That's crazy. That's a crazy number. Based on, and so I've been sort of just Transfermarkt actually allows you to sort of look at this data, and there's not a way to see. I don't know if there's a way to see like who has the most, but like Sun and Bwanga have 8 goals. They're probably the most prolific in MLS. They have 8 goals in like 1,500 minutes. But among the Sounders, this is a really high number. But like just for fun, I looked at what Harry Kane and Sun had together. They had 58 goals, but in 20,000 minutes, which is actually works out to be about 0.25 goals per 90 combined, right? Well, Ferreira and Arriola are at 0.24. So essentially, if you want to look at it this way, when Paul Arriola and Jesus Ferreira are on the pitch together, that's basically like having Harry Kane and Son together.
Oh, that's going to go well with people. Oh, you're going to hear from the Eurosnobs quite takingly that point phenomenally. But look, I think it's huge. And I said it prior to the game, it could be a game changer for this team because you needed that. And I thought, and here's where I'll give you my overall take on the game. It was a huge team win. I mean, everybody played great. Even those who didn't have a great game, like Christian Roldan, were part of getting this incredible win. I was a little bit concerned about Cosariense going forward too much. But right off the bat, right off the first 5 minutes, he showed me that he was locked in, because in those 5 minutes, Alex Roldan is trying to build out of the back. He gets a little bit too cute with the ball on dribbling, and he gets dispossessed by Kenji Cabrera. And who makes the run to save that particular opportunity? Kalani Cosariense. Now, Alex had a phenomenal game, huge game. I'm just kind of pointing out
I saw the same
one
thing.
particular
I saw the
error.
same thing.
But Kalani's ability to get there was phenomenal, and then he was good getting forward. So Kalani was great. Alex Roldan was phenomenal, so strong, so poised. I mentioned that one of my favorite things about center back Alex Roldan, is his emergency defense. There is a breakaway from Vancouver Whitecaps in that first half where Iliomi gets loose, and the last guy on in the defense is Alex Roldan, and Iliomi, he hits him with this 2-move and really gets Alex off balance, but he never loses positioning, and he pokes the ball out, stops a counter. So Alex Roldan was phenomenal. He was good on set pieces. I think Jackson Reagan had a big game. Nuhu had a phenomenal game. So all of it, he just worked out so perfectly. Snyder Burnell, a guy that he didn't have a great game against St. Louis. He was key in link-up play, in understanding where he needed to be, in helping out that initial build-out. It was just such a great overall win. But the man of the match, the story of it all has to be Paul Arriola. Not because of the brace, but because of the timing that it happened. You know what I'm talking about. 1 year and a day after he suffered that drastic, just horrendous injury in Mexico City, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep. In the same round of the tournament.
Same round of the tournament, and now he's back. Goals, like you mentioned already, that first goal was great, but the second goal is just a guy making the right run, not giving up on a play. I think Kalani, I thought he was offside when I first saw it. Even my wife was like, he's off. They're going to call that.
No, he's on. Yeah.
No, he's completely on. And when you go back and look at that play, he sees it and he almost tucks inside and then makes that run. That's why it looks like he's off, because he was just waiting to get ahead, and that he has that athleticism to get there, and then the technical component to get the ball where he needed to be. And then Paul, he hits it, it bounces in, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's just being at the right place at the right time. And anytime that you see a player put in as much effort, sacrifice to get back from an injury of that degree, and you see it reflect in their performance, that just feels good. That's a great story. That he is the man of the match and the story of this match, without a doubt.
Oh, I totally agree. The narrative aspect of it makes it so satisfying as well. And sort of even the nature of the goals, the way that he, especially the second goal, where it's just this, he's making this run from the opposite wing, which is not, you're not the most likely to player to link up there, right? He's coming from the opposite wing. Kalani is cutting in. He doesn't really have a shooting angle, and he really just puts the ball in a dangerous spot and hopes something happens. I mean, because that's really all you can do in that situation. He's never going to be able to, Arriola is never going to get to that spot first. That's just not the geometry of the runs, but he puts himself in a dangerous spot, and he's there to capitalize when the ball bounces around and it just ends up coming off of his knee. You just love to see it. You love to see the hustle. You love to see the determination. And speaking of which, the third goal, which could end up, the third goal really does change the entire outlook of
course
this.
It does.
Of this, because it turns it from anything can kind of happen to something really has to go wrong for the Sounders to not advance, which Whitecaps are a great team. This is not over, but it changes the map a lot. And on that play, Christian Roldan makes a nice run. It's actually a similar play to the second goal, and he just sort of chips a ball to Danny Musovski, who's making a run. He can't quite get there. I know on the replay it looks a little bit like he whiffs on it. I had a great view of this shot. We were like right in the corner where the ball is. We had a perfect view of it, and I'll just tell you, I assure you, Musovski just did not get there. It was not a matter of him whiffing. It was just a little bit out of his reach, but the ball is so perfect that it gets through the defense. And Paul Rothrock makes this run that you always coach players to make. You always tell them, get to the back post because you never know what's going to happen. But it's so hard mentally to make that run because it takes a lot of energy and you are unrewarded so many times. Like either what you expect to happen there is either Musovski is going to tap it in, or the defender is going to get there, or the goalkeeper is going to get there. And it just doesn't seem very likely that it's going to get all the way to the back post. But sure enough, Rothrock made the run. And another thing I want to say about that is that a lot of times, if you don't fully commit to that run, what either happens is the ball goes out of bounds, or all your energy is just keeping it from going out of bounds. And instead, he's able to just first time it into the goal because he made the hard run. He committed to it immediately. And you just love to see that kind of stuff from this team.
Totally agree. And that's what you love about Paul Rothrock. And you might have a two Paul trouble or Paul squared or something.
Oops, too many Pauls. Oops, all Pauls.
I know. It's phenomenal, right? And I totally agree with you in terms of not every player makes that run. Not every player. Someone might just be like, I'm just not going to try to make that. But he has the determination. He makes the extra run, and then he's rewarded for it, which is phenomenal. But I want to take you back to, and this is not going to vote well for the, Niko continues to bring up Ferreira. But if you go back to that pass before that, Christian makes that run, but the pass from Ferreira to Christian, and you need to go see it. The most South American pass you'll ever see is what we call la cucharita, the spoon. And he just like puts his foot under the ball and just lobs it over the pressure or the person blocking that lane, and he floats it into Christian Roldan, and then Christian, you see it bounce, and then Christian makes a great run and puts the ball away. But those little details, those little things, that's what I'm telling you, that link up play, those important moments, this team needs. And the reason why I focus so much on it is because I see the potential that this team has, and it's gonna get even better when Pedro's back, when Jordan's back. But having a guy like that on the field just creates opportunities that might not necessarily be there with that creativeness and that shiftiness and ability to just change the game. So phenomenal play overall. I do want to tame the conversations about the body language from Musovski because he sees the ball get by and then he kind of gets down, but then he applauds Paul. I heard people being like, "Oh, Danny's mad." Well, of course he's mad. He wants that goal.
He's a striker.
For him. Yeah,
people are acting like it's like some big revelation that a striker is mad that he didn't score a goal that he saw just sitting there for him. Like, yeah, I mean, sure, it's. It is
you
funny.
want it for yourself, but it's not. I mean, it's not like he's gonna hate Paul for it.
Right, exactly.
He's
like,
saying, "Man, that was my goal." God,
exactly.
But then he applauds because, hey, man, we got the third goal. So let's just dismiss that narrative because I as much as I'm not I've been known not to be a Danny Musovski guy. I feel like that's an unfair criticism. But overall, man, I just thought that from the game plan to the approach, to that intensity, that is something that I don't know if I said on Friday in our show or on Monday or before the game, but I had mentioned that if there was something that was gonna allow this team to get a win on an uphill battle with everything against them, really, was going back and nurturing the same type of intensity that they had in Club World Cup, where you were outmatched, out-talented every single game. But every time that you heard either Brian talk or the opposition coach talk, Luis Enrique said it, is that intensity, that ability to just effortlessly keep going and running and all these things, that can really condense the edge of talent, because you're just fighting every ball, you're keeping that intensity. And I thought the Sounders did that. I thought that they had the intensity, they harnessed that into good soccer. Brian, when he dismissed your question, he talked about the possession play and the ability to get through pressure. I thought that was great too. There was great passing patterns, phenomenal passing patterns. That was absolutely part of the Sounders' dominance in the game, and is a factor that we cannot forget. Now, transition moments led to goals, and that's undeniable. But yes, that possession play, that ability to switch the field, everything, it all just worked for the Sounders. That's why I'm so high on it. And it was so good that it hid some of the inconsistencies that you have with a guy like Christian, who usually is your all-star.
Sounder at Heart has been around in one form or another since 2009. In 2026, though, we make a pretty significant evolution when we go analog. Yes, that's right, in the year of our Lord 2026, we are publishing a real-life magazine. We're calling this thing 4, as in Sounder at Heart 4.0, but we're stylizing it as IV because we absolutely love Roman numeral. And if you want to refer to it as IV, that's cool too. The first issue has a comic book style cover that was hand-drawn by local artist Kevin Newber. Features by Tim Foss, Susie Rance, and Charlie Boehm, a statistical deep dive by Kat Bush, a Q&A with Brian Schmetzer, a column by G. Willow Wilson, and photographs by Noah Reif, Max Aquino, Mike Russell, and Jane Dershowitz. I could not possibly be more proud of the work everyone put into making this, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these limited edition copies, we're currently selling them for $15 on our website. Get yours now. Nos Arietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Hacks and Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at hacksandferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code SOUNDERATHEART, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to hacksandferments.com, use the code SOUNDERATHEART at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Hacks and Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Yeah, you know, that was one of the things we talked about on the live stream last night. And by the way, if you haven't watched it, if you are just a dedicated Nos Arietes listener and you don't always check out the Lobbing Scorchers post-game live streams that they do, this one's worth watching. I just want to throw that out there. Even if you don't watch another one, this one is fun. We did it while we were driving in the car back to the United States. It even includes
good.
It even includes a surprise cameo drive-through order that we just decided to stream the drive-through order and that whole experience. It was a lot of fun. But one of the things we talked about is Christian Roldan may have been the Sounders' worst player. I don't say that like as a dig, but he was if you're going through all the players and the starters that had good games, he's down the list pretty far. And it wasn't that he was bad. It's just that he was not up to the normal standard that we have for him. He had a few bad giveaways. He wasn't super involved. Like it happens. And I guess the reason I bring it up as a notable occurrence is not because the Sounders didn't need him to be at his absolute best in order to have his performance, which itself is such a great development, because it does sometimes feel like this team is only going to go as far as Christian Roldan can sort of carry them, especially when they're in the injury situation that they're in right now. And they just showed last night, they have the depth, they have the quality to even be at an elite level when Christian is not at his best.
And we cannot talk about a team win without mentioning Stefan Frei. And
Yes.
let me take a quick victory lap on this one, because I have been telling people that I do a lot of Stefan Frei watch. I'm at the facilities and at trainings way too often. And a lot of the things that I do is watch certain players, and Stefan Frei is one of those. And I mentioned in our last show some of the big saves that he'd had, the preparation, all of these things. But beyond that big save that he had, which was a phenomenal save, I mean, that has got to go in his portfolio. Do you remember the D-Rose chance early in the game?
Mm-hmm.
And I think D-Rose, he gets set up perfectly by Arriola, and he could probably have done better. I think you could see, if you go back, you could see Arriola yelling, "Give me the ball back!" Yep. But that starts off of a beautiful pass by Stefan Frei. It's a back pass to Steph. Steph sees the space. He puts the ball on a dime to Arriola. And man, that's just the type of awareness, distribution, experience that Steph has. So he was great throughout the whole game, but particularly that pass and that save, that paid it for me. And this is why you have a experience, still very informed goalkeeper, is for these sort of situations. And I praise Brian for taking the gamble, because I do call it a gamble, because if anything goes wrong, everyone is crucifying Brian Spencer, right?
For playing with his heart, and not because I think a lot of people would tell you that Brian is making that decision not because he thinks that's what's undeniably the best decision to make, but he's doing it because he just loves Steph. I think that's what a lot of people, honestly, if you had told me that, I wouldn't have totally disputed it. But I think what we saw last night is Steph is still very capable of elite performances. And I want to also point out that the save he makes on Laborda, it's at the time it's 2-0. If that goes in, first of all, it's still relatively early in the game. Who knows how it plays out? But even if the game ends 2-1, that's a very different result than 3-0. The game is it's a wide open series at that point. And instead what happens is he makes that save, and next on the following sequence, like right away, is when the Sounders get their third goal. They play out of the back. Ferreira makes that wonderful scoop pass. Christian plays it in, and it's 3-0. And in the span of 30 seconds, the series is completely different. It's a totally different series because of that save. And that save, I think, was easy to overlook in the moment because of the goal happening right away. But if we look back on it and we go into Spokane, if we want to look where the series really, the whole complexion of the series changed, it was right there when that save gets made. And Stefan Frei maybe makes one mistake in this game, and that's on what is almost the last play. He comes out, I don't even know if it was a mistake, but he comes out and I actually think what he ends up doing is like punching Jackson in the side of the head. Best we can tell, Jackson is fine. We don't have any updates, but according to Brian after the game, it was not a major concern. But he basically whiffs on the punch, and Thomas Muller ends up having to do this sort of acrobatic, sort of side swivel kick that he puts off the crossbar, and it ends up not making a difference. But other than that, I thought Stefan Frei was pretty much perfect, frankly. And I think it was also, like you said, he's a better distributor than Andrew Thomas at this point.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, that's a part of the game that, and Andrew knows. Andrew's a very self-aware player and person, and he's been phenomenal this season. He's well deserved of the job, without a doubt. But if there is, and that's a hard one for goalkeepers. That being a good keeper with your feet is difficult, unless you've always been good with your feet, and that's not always the case with goalkeepers. And then there is those goalkeepers that are way too comfortable with their feet, and then they end up making mistakes.
The Tigres goalkeeper yesterday, who literally gave away one goal, and then 3 minutes later almost gives away another goal.
Yes.
And it'll be interesting to see how that series plays out. But that's something that the Sounders might have to be watching if Tigres comes back and wins that series.
Yeah, and again, that mistake on Steph is a little bit of if it's not communication, maybe it's just the timing. Jackson Reagan's going up for the ball. He's trying to get it. It's an urgency moment. So, I also wouldn't put it so much on him. Thankfully, it doesn't cost the team anything, but I'm totally with you. I thought that he was near perfect. And he, if anything, gives you the certainty and the security that you have a very, very capable number two in my eyes. I know that Brian said it's two number ones, but at least for this tournament, your number one is excellent. But if moving forward, there's a need for his number to be called, he's going to be ready to go.
Absolutely. I don't know if there's really much left to say other than I guess the Dero Musovski battle is still sort of on. I think both of us thought Musovski would start this game. I have to think Musovski is going to start the San Jose game almost for sure. In fact, I think there's going to be, and this is maybe a good transition, a lot of, I have to think there's going to be some significant rotation going into San Jose because they just can't, there's too many games. I mean, because it's not like the San Jose game is the end of the congestion, or even the next Whitecaps game is the end of congestion. They have an additional game against Minnesota after that, and then they get a break. But they do sort of have to manage minutes for these next two games, I think, especially because it's going to be tough. Brian at the end of in the post game basically said Tino Lopez was going to start against San Jose. That means one of Jackson, presumably it means one of Jackson or Alex Roldan is going to get the day off. That's the San Jose game is going to be tricky. I think that's that much we know. It'll be interesting to see how much rotation there is and at what positions.
But you bring up a good point, and it is moving forward. I think that last night puts two positional battles very much in front of Brian. The one that we've been having is Osase and Danny Musovski, and how that's going to work out. And maybe if Danny Musovski does start against San Jose and he balls, then that's going to be a good problem to have, but definitely is going to be interesting how Brian uses it. Because I will say this for Dero, his hold up play was very good. He does excellent at setting up players. I think his pressing is very good. He plays excellent with his back to goal. So he does a lot of good things for you, but sometimes you might need goals, and if Danny performs, it's going to be interesting how it goes. I still think that Osase is your best option, and I'm sorry, Danny, I really do think that Osase is still the best option. But the one that I think is now more present than ever is Burnell over Hassani.
That is I think that's so my suspicion is that this is my suspicion is that Burnell will probably start this game, if only because there's a decent chance that Dotson will be available for the second leg, and they just don't. They need to give Burnell one of those two games off, I think. And I agree with you. I think that's becoming a real battle because Burnell, the Sounders they looked better in this game than they have I guess you could say they looked good against Colorado in the first game, but this was the best they looked. Yeah, I don't think they did either. I mean, Burnell just has he does a lot of the Obed stuff that the Sounders are kind of missing. And he's got that same sort of escapability. He's good in tight spaces. He might not be as good defensively. I don't think he's as good defensively as Dotson is, but he is so tidy in possession, and sometimes that can get him in trouble too, but he allows the Sounders to move the ball differently, and I think that could end up being a differentiating factor. And that's not necessarily a knock on Dotson. I think Dotson's still going to get minutes, but you can sort of see in a game like that why that's more of a conversation than it might initially seem.
Yep, co-signed everything you just said. That's exactly my thoughts on the matter. I don't want to sound like someone that is trying to completely turn the page on Dotson. He is someone that I think has a particular sets of skills that is very useful. You need that disruptor. You do need that guy that's going to come in and be physical and cover space, and at times not be afraid to take a foul. But when it comes to just transition moments and on offense, when he has the ball at his feet, is when Dotson struggles the most. And it's not all the time. He has good turns. He has good passes. I'm not saying that he is, one of those players that only does defensive duties, because he has some ball skills. He does have soft feet, like Brian said. I just don't think he is a Aussie Gustav mix that Brian tried to sell us on. Is just he's a very good defensive midfielder right now, at least is what it feels like for this particular team. But Snyder is undeniably the more like for like player than to what you had in Obed Vargas. And I'm high in the kid. I think he's going to continue to do well. But if I'm looking for someone that's going to make my team better in possession, better in transition, and just better offensively, Brunel has, a clear edge, in my opinion, when it comes to that position.
Yeah, and it's not the worst thing in the world if there's three players, because the thing is I think Dotson can spell Roldan pretty easily, not easily, but I think that might actually be a better fit for him within the Sounders system, is to play more of that Christian Roldan role where he's a little bit more of a 6 and less of an 8, whereas Brunel is a little bit more of an 8 than a 6. And I think that maybe combines, and this, I guess sort of what I'm saying is I think this is more about how much Brunel has impressed us than how much Dotson has disappointed us.
Exactly. Love that.
Like Brunel has really done some that was an eye-opening game. Like I like Brunel, and yet facing a team like the Whitecaps on the road, he just had a couple plays last night that were like very calm and collected and beyond his years in some ways. And I liked him a lot. But do we want to go through what we think? So I think we're probably in agreement. Musovski probably starts against San Jose.
Yes.
And then I got to guess that it's only going to be one of Ferreira or Rusnak that starts, but I think you got to start one of them, right? And I think Ferreira might be the more likely player, in part because I think he's both been more rested and he's more capable of playing every game right now. He just seems like, because of the way they've been using him, that it might make more sense to have him be in there. Would you share that opinion?
I would agree. I think he has the less miles currently. I think that he looks extremely fit. You took him out at the right time in this particular game. And last season, he played close to the most minutes in the
almost
team.
Every game. Yeah, he played the most game. He had the most appearances of anyone.
So, he is got that endurance component. So, yeah, I think he's the one you start. And before you keep going on that lineup, did you find out why Georgie wasn't with the team?
We did not find that out. And that's a good question. I don't know, hopefully they're just saving him for, like, they didn't bring I felt like they didn't bring a couple guys. So I'm just hoping they are saving him, but we did not even ask. And I'm kind of kicking myself for not at least looking into that. But no, we had no explanation at all why Georgie didn't travel. He didn't travel at all. Which is why you bring it up. It's not that he didn't play. Exactly.
No, and I mentioned it so once you continue to do this lineup builder, if Georgie is available,
is healthy,
think he start, right?
I would think so, and I think I would think Rothrock starts in this game as well. And so then you potentially have those are your two wingers with Ferreira and Musovski, and then in central midfield, I think you probably go Roldan Brunel again, right?
I think so. Yep.
And then
you're not going to play Nicola, I'll tell you that.
Well, that would be an interesting. I guess that's an interesting thing. Do you think, like, what did you make of Petkovic in this game? Like, he got on the field. He was a little anonymous. I didn't notice that he came into the game, and I was like, wait a minute, who's 44? And I had to look at my note. Oh, that's Petkovic. I guess he came in for Rusnak. I honestly didn't even notice when it happened.
Yeah, it just wasn't noticeable. And when you're a player that's dying for minutes and you come in the 77th, you want to show up. And look, when my daughter's like, hey, that guy looks like he's tired. He just came in. I was like, who, babe? Who are you talking about? He said, oh, number 44. And I was like, oh,
That's not
yeah,
good sign.
he's not pressing quite as much. And I was like, wow, babe, okay. Yeah, definitely.
Coming in
My daughter
hot.
noticed it. Yeah, I know, coming in hot. I was like, oh, maybe. Yeah. So anyway, so she noticed it, and I really did too, right? And like I said, I watched it a couple times this game, and there was just nothing quite there that I could really hang on to. And this is another player that I don't want to necessarily crucify because there's just not enough data. I need to see a bigger sample. I don't want to judge him on a preseason game and a couple of cameos and 10, 15 minutes, but it just doesn't give me any indication other than he's clearly more of a 10, or Brian's bringing him in for Albert Rusnak every single time.
Right.
He's not playing in
notable.
those pivots. So that's the one indicator, is that you are seeing him more as a creative midfielder. So maybe if you want to keep Jesus on the right, maybe if you want to test what you got in Nikola Petkovic, you might put him at the 10. And then if it's not working, then you bring in let's say Georgie, and then you move Paul Rothrock to the other side, and then you put Ferreira at the 10. Maybe that's something that you could do to figure out what you have in Nikola.
That's an interesting thought. But you're right. He's been used almost exclusively this year as more of Rusnak's backup than as one of the central midfield. Like, he's not been used really along with Christian or Snyder or Hassani as more of a defensive midfielder. And then where I think this lineup gets very interesting is along the back line, because you feel like, to me, it just, in some ways, you like, okay, well, you don't necessarily need to rest these guys, but you do, like, you just don't want to push them too hard either. What do you want? What do you think makes sense as a back line for the Sounders?
It's
put you
difficult.
on the spot.
Yeah, no, because I've been thinking about this. It's difficult, but I know for sure Tino Lopez is starting. So it's who's going to be next.
That was the one thing Brian basically announced, was that Tino Lopez,
right? He literally came out and said it, right? So, and then I'm curious how many call-ups he's had, but whatever. I think that Tino,
I don't think
he's about to be 4.
Well, yeah, but I don't think the Champions Cup counts against his total.
Beautifully. Yeah, nice. So I do think Tino starts. I want to keep the consistency just with Alex, unless you're going to a 3-man back line, which I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that you just keep Alex and Tino. I just want to rest Jackson. Jackson, you just need him healthy. If you're going to put anyone on bubble wrap, it has to be Jackson.
It's got to be Jackson.
You got to make sure that he's fine for that Wednesday game. So, see it for what it is. Tino and Alex, Nuhu on the left and Kalani on the right. Keep it simple.
Yeah, the only thing I was wondering is if maybe you try to get, is it too cute to try to put Cody Baker either at left back or right back? Baker has not had a ton of minutes. He did not get into this game. He played okay in the St. Louis game, but I don't know. I suppose he could play either right back or left back, theoretically. He's played both, and he's looked okay at both. And it might be an interesting thought. I guess maybe you just roll the dice there and see what you get. Who would you rather, if you were going to bench one of, or give a rest to Nuhu or Kalani, who would you be more likely to? Maybe, I guess, Kalani, just because you can't afford him to get hurt, because you really need you need Alex playing at center back.
Yeah, I think Kalani's has put a lot of minutes into him, and tough minutes. His explosiveness. He's the guy that's getting forward a lot more than Nuhu. And Nuhu has a career of durability. I mean, he's a guy that, if anything, he's. If one thing about Nuhu is that he doesn't get hurt a lot. And so if I'm taking bets,
as long as he's not getting malaria or whatever.
Or he, his passport got missed or something.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe then, but other than that, if he's not sick or some crazy, I do think that he has been durable. So yes, I rolled the dice. I think that if you play Cody Baker, it would have to be, in my opinion, in a 3-man system where, maybe, and I don't even know who you would play, like in the middle, like Alex in the middle with Tino on the left. I mean, I don't know. It'd be kind of weird. I think you're playing with too many pieces there. So I think that you leave it as it is. But
that could be.
But look, if you do want to risk Kalani, then yeah, I would consider Cody Baker fine, and see how it works out at the very least. Now, San Jose, I'm still not as hyped as all of probably most of the pundits that I follow.
Yeah, I mean,
but
everyone seems really excited about, and I think what people, especially the pundits, sort of love about San Jose is they just sort of have this. I think there's this like odd symmetry in Bruce just sort of reviving teams that seem dead. And so it's like, well, Bruce has done it again. He's revived, San Jose, who looked totally dead a few years ago, and now they look like they might be a decent team. I'm with you, though. I'm not quite ready to totally buy this. They have not. It's not like they're like running through the toughest teams right now, and beating the Sounders at home would be a bit of a statement for them. I think you could say that it would be their best win. I mean, so far they've destroyed a pretty bad Sporting Kansas City team. They beat a very bad Atlanta United team. Winning on the road against the Union is not, I don't want to dismiss that, but the Union don't look quite as good as they were last year.
And they didn't play great, Jeremiah. They did not play great. I watched this game this morning, and they just didn't look great. It took a long time for them to get into the game. It took Timo Werner to come into the game, actually, for them to have any real creativeness in the attacking end. He's the one that sets up that goal beautifully, Dubota. I mean, he basically sets it up on a platter with a gorgeous, just diagonal pass that goes through like 5 players for Philadelphia.
Yeah, but there was also really bad defending. I mean, if we're being honest,
it's terrible defending. No, it's terrible defending. So that's exactly what I mean. This is not the best version of Philadelphia by any means. They almost look unrecognizable at times. And I'm a big Cornell guy. I really like him. And this is a team that doesn't have the Cornell intensity so far. And in this specific game, they had some opportunities, some missed chances, and they allowed San Jose to get into this game. So there was nothing crazy brilliant about San Jose at all. So I'm just not as high because of the teams that you've beat, in the fashion that you've beat them, with the exception of the Sporting Kansas City game. So I'm just not there yet. I don't see anything from this team aside from, I love the fact that there's so many, draft picks and American players that are in it. I respect it.
Yeah.
I absolutely respect it. I think Niko Moreno has been very good. I think that they have revived Ricketts. I think that he's played excellently. I think defensively they do a very good job, and they mainly try to find ways to beat you with set pieces, and that's what they're very dangerous at. So the Sounders have played very good against set pieces. So to me, Seattle matches up well. I think, in my opinion, they have more talent on the field. Timo Werner, sure, he picks up the slack for the talent level of a lot of other players. I don't want to call this team like a whole bunch of slobs, but obviously he's the guy that raises that ceiling. But I think that line to line, the Sounders match up well with San Jose.
Even a rotated Sounders team, I think,
even a rotated Sounders team.
Yeah. And so if Werner were to start, which I don't know if he's capable of starting, they've been sort of ramping him up those last 2 games. Would he most likely start for Ricketts on the left? Is that the idea?
That's a great question, because we've all kind of thought that it was going to be like a 2-striker system. But yes, I think that on the left side is where he's played. So yeah, him and Judd seem to work well together, and Niko Shaqiri's being allowed to just have all that freedom at that camp position. They do get forward a lot with Jones on the left, a lot of those overlaps, which allows Timo to get inside. And at times, he is a guy that's coming into the box. But yeah, I mean, that could potentially have some concerns. So yeah, he's probably going to be the most dangerous player without a doubt. And now Daniel has been very good this season in comparison to last season, where he's a disaster. Yeah, he was a disaster last year. Yeah,
yeah. He's Daniel seems to kind of have these peaks and valleys, sort of all over the place, where he goes from one year to the next. I mean, it's kind of been a weird. It's been weird.
Yeah, and I think the most noticeable thing here, and I guess is the stamp of Bruce Arena, is that they've given up no goals.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't know. I like the Sounders' chances, even if they have to rotate in this one. It's but the game is, it's sounds like it's going to be a good test. I'm just not. I think ultimately the way I feel is that you got to set yourself up as good as possible for Wednesday. You can't get too wrapped up in what happens in this. Like you can't afford to just go all out, especially because the game is on Sunday. You're not going to have a lot of rest. So you sort of just have to make some calculated risks. And that probably means rotating your lineup, maybe not fully, but if there are 7 changes to the lineup, I won't be surprised. I won't be upset about it. I guess there's the danger of getting overly, like they could over rotate, I suppose. But, these are, the players seem to be in good shape. Hopefully Georgie's healthy and you can get another fresh body in there and not feel like you're dropping off too much. So I'm optimistic. I feel like this win though really does, not that the mood was bad. I mean, the Sounders were 2-1, so it wasn't like things had been going bad, but there was, I think this changes the outlook. This makes me feel like this is a team that can still play with the elite opponents in this league.
That is as an understatement as I can think of, Jeremiah. I do believe that as much as this team had not been bad, they also had not been necessarily exciting. And a lot of the fans had that concern that this team just didn't have that TNT, that dynamite, that ability to go out there and win a game. I saw so many, and I will say that I was on not so extreme on that narrative, but after the St. Louis game, I just didn't feel too great about
it wasn't
the approach.
Yeah, sure.
And the way they played. So, I heard a lot of fans talk about, man, I miss the days when the Sounders were our protagonists and they were this exciting. And I think that now that
I think Niko may have just lost his electricity, and that's probably a good place to call the show anyway. But yeah, Niko looks like he's struggling. It looks like we have a slight connection, but I think we're gonna just call it there. If I'm seeing correctly, the lights have gone out at his house, and yeah, I think we're just going to call it there. I can still see Niko, but the connection is a much lower quality. So I think we've said our piece. That said, thank you so much for doing this with me, Niko. Going to sign off here. I am Jeremiah Oshan. This is No Study at This, part of the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, and we'll catch you next time.
Let's go Sounders.